Back home now, there are calls for the Warragamba Dam to be raised to assist in flood mitigation and to help prevent future disasters. Locals are frustrated as they clean up after the fourth flooding event to impact the Hawkesbury Nepean catchment in just 16 months. Joining us live now is the Hills Shire Council Mayor, Dr. Peter Gangemi. Appreciate your time. Is there any evidence to suggest that raising the dam would prevent the sort of devastation we've seen this week?
Yes, there is, Ashley. Thank you for having me on. And I'm here at the Hawkesbury River today, and I was here with the Mayor of Hawkesbury Council, Pat Connolly, earlier today. And the reason we're here is that we believe the communities of Western Sydney and Northwestern Sydney are very supportive of the raising the Warragamba Dam wall to provide greater flood mitigation for people in our communities. And we felt being here together on the river was a strong symbol of that local support. In answering your question, raising the dam wall 14 metres for flood mitigation could reduce, the modelling shows could reduce the flood impacts of major floods by up to 3.5 metres. And we know that for every metre higher that these floods have gone, it goes up exponential in terms of the impacts to homes, businesses and cost of recovery. So this project has the potential to be a real game changer for the community.
We saw in a news conference yesterday when the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet was standing side by side. They were both asked about this very issue, and the Premier was saying that the advice he's getting from the experts is that it wouldn't have made a big difference. In fact, there are some who are arguing that it could have made things worse in this instance. Why is there such a disconnect?
Well, I don't want to, as I said, if I'm speaking purely about the issues, the own environmental impact statement and their own modelling does show that with the dam wall being raised 14 metres, it has the potential to reduce the flood impacts by 3.5 metres. So that's what the modelling of the 2021 floods showed. And I'm here to represent our residents along the river. So the residents have very clearly advocated to me that after four major floods in the last 16 months, it's too much. They're fed up. They want to see action with this project, and that's why we're here today to advocate for their interests.
What other action can be taken? I see some are arguing it'd be better to build high-level evacuation roads and perhaps curb the overdevelopment of floodplains. Are those measures that you'd also like to be implemented in terms of practical changes that would make a real difference in these events?
I think after a natural disaster like this, every option should be considered. If there are things we can do to evacuate people faster, to get notifications quicker, there's certainly options. But when I speak to residents on the riverfront, and I travelled each day this week, I've been travelling out to the communities along the riverfront, speaking to residents, and when I'm asking them, what do we need to do as a level of government into the future? This is the key project that they're saying to me, which would have the most immediate impact in terms of helping them reduce impacts to their homes and businesses. I was just at Wiseman's Ferry, for instance, and the floodwaters, if they're only a foot or two shorter, they wouldn't have gone into the Wiseman's Ferry Bowling Club there, and that's just 1 or 2 foot, and we're talking of potential floods being reduced by metres. So this is a key project that we're looking for government to push, and it's something that myself and the community are strongly advocating for.
Peter, how is your community holding up? How are those residents that you've been speaking this week? They must be just so flood weary at this point.
They're absolutely devastated, and I often say the Hills is the best place in the world to live, and along the riverfront is the most beautiful part of being in the Hills. But after 4 major floods in 16 months, they've had enough and they want to see action. We can't have this again where we have this many floods and in such a short period of time. People are just recovered from cleaning up in the floods in March, and then they're hit immediately again. So that's why we need to look at all the options, and this particular option in terms of raising Warragamba Dam wall is the one that residents are most talking to me about and most strongly advocating for. And so that's why I'm here along the riverfront today to help advocate for their interests with this project.
So from spending the week there and speaking with these residents, can you just give us a sense of the scale of this flood compared with the previous ones that you've alluded to? Just how bad is this one in comparison?
Absolutely. And Ashley, just as you were asking that question, there was a resident who just walked by the camera shot behind me and it was hearing what I was saying about raising the dam wall, and they raised their arm up and said absolutely. So that's an indication of the community support for the project out here along the river. But in terms of the flood impacts, they are the worst I've ever seen. So I went up to Wiseman's Ferry, I went down Cliftonville Road to Leetsvale, Lower Portland at the Dargle Ski Park, and along towards Chapel Hill Road as well in Sackville North. And the floodwaters there were the highest levels I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm 36 years old. So the impacts, we won't know the full extent of the impacts until the floodwaters go down, but it's clearly an absolutely devastating flood. And as a community, we're doing all we can to band around our residents and support them. And I'd also like to take this chance to thank our RFS and SES and our other volunteers and our council staff who have been working so hard to help our community as much as possible. We're so thankful for their efforts as well.
They do amazing work every time we see one of these devastating events. Hills Shire Council Mayor Dr. Peter Gangemi, really appreciate your time, and our hearts go out to everyone in your community struggling at the moment. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Ashley.